postpartum video and realized that it was getting really long, so I'm splitting it up, and in this one I will put in where I talk about my 6-week postpartum visit and as well as my consultation appointment with my new OB. I randomly kept looking, and I have an app that has all my medical stuff in it, any test results, whatever. So I would always randomly check it, and then on October 21st I randomly checked it, and of course there was something which I wasn't expecting to see. I would have expected a phone call first, but not the way it worked out. I had the autopsy report of my placenta. Her placenta? Whose placenta is it? I don't know. Our placenta? Yeah, so I found out from that I had a small placenta. So I later on have learned that is a cause for stillbirth. That wasn't the only cause for her demise, but I think it played a role. And let's see, it also talked about chronic histiocytic intervillositis. It's usually common with mothers that have an autoimmune disease, which I don't, as far as I'm aware. But I guess it's lately also been seen in people with COVID. So I also explained in my pregnancy videos how I had the subchorionic hematomas. So I've heard a few doctors say kind of between the small placenta, the hematomas, and then the CHI, we'll call it, it ended up being just the perfect storm is what it came down to. So I received that though, and those are huge words. So I called the doctor's office, and of course you have to talk to a million people before you can actually talk to the doctor. You have to talk to the call center, and then they have to then they relay the message, and then the nurse calls you, and then she's like, I can help. And then I'm like, okay, tell me what this is. And then she's like, well, I can't. So then she has to tell the doctor, and then I have to wait for the doctor to call me. So the doctor finally called me, and because I was worried, because this CHI is it often reoccurs. So I all of a sudden was terrified, I'll never be able to have more kids. This is going to happen again. How did I have 2 successful pregnancies before though? So it was just, it was a lot. So I was freaking out and panicking. So she finally called me, and she told me the thing that stood out to her was the small placenta, but everything else was fine. So I was like, oh, okay, great. And then I had my 6-week postpartum visit on October 28th, and I went in, and I of course was super nervous. It was awful being back there, even though I didn't find out there. It still just is triggering to be there. I walked up, and the receptionist was like, oh, here, you have the postpartum depression survey, and she's like, oh, I'm sure you've seen this before. And I was just didn't say anything, but it's of course I've seen it before, because I have 2 kids, but, 2 living kids. But she meant because usually they give that to you at the pediatrician's office in the early days after having a baby, and you fill it out there too. I didn't say anything, she of course wouldn't know. So, that was so frustrating to fill out, because obviously I'm depressed. Obviously. I'd be worried about a bereaved mother if she wasn't depressed. It was it's almost it should be the opposite. If you're not depressed, we probably should worry. Do you have emotions? But yeah, so that was super frustrating. I filled it out. I sat in, I finally came back with the nurse, blah, blah, blah. Sat in the room forever waiting for her. She finally came in, and the first thing she said to me, she's like, oh, it must be really triggering for you to be here. Yeah, thanks. And then she proceeded to tell me that I scored extremely high on the depression survey thing. Yeah. Yeah. I told her that it, like, just upset me because it's like, there should be a whole different survey for moms, you know, who have had a stillborn. Like, how can I answer those questions when I don't have a 6-week-old baby at home? Like, it's not, that can't apply to me at all. So, and she was like, well, unfortunately, we don't have one of those. And I'm like, yeah, like, of course I'm depressed. So she upped my antidepressants. Oh, and gave me a year's worth of supply. So I felt like that was like we don't really want to see you back here soon. So, and yeah, so that was just like really annoying of a visit. I asked her when it was like okay to try to conceive again, and she said like, you know, give your body a few cycles and then you're fine. And she asked about birth control. I said no. She was fine with that, so I was like, yeah, whatever. Walked out of there forever, never going back there. That 6-week postpartum visit, emotions were running like extremely high. It was a lot for me. I went home, and I would say that was probably my first like real breakdown. I got drunk on our back porch in the cold and sat out there crying and drinking for a few hours. And yeah, it was just it was a lot of big emotions. And you know, like I said, I had cried so much already, cried like every day, but that was like a real breakdown, and it was tough. Then November 1st, a few days later, I ended up having an appointment, like a consultation appointment with a new OBGYN, because even if I never get pregnant again, like I still want a new gynecologist, just so I never have to go back to the same place. So I met with her, and I was like nervous. I was recommended her through 2 friends, actually, both go to her and have had kids through her. So I was excited, but I was like nervous that the appointment was going to be like stupid and pointless, of being like, almost like I felt like I didn't have like questions to ask or anything. But oh my gosh, I love her. Like, she's incredible. I am so happy to have found her. I'm so happy to just have made that change and switch. And she was just so sweet. Like, the whole time she just like kept calling me Rach, which like I felt like it was just like so personal. Like, she actually like cared to like even just take the time to like remember your name. I don't know. And she talked a lot, actually. It was like hard for me to get a word in. But that wasn't a bad thing. It was like, oh, okay, like she's got a lot to say. And she thoroughly looked through my chart before I came, and like, I mean, all the way back. And so she definitely cared a lot, and it was just a really, really good experience. She probably spent like a half hour with me just talking. So it was just, it felt so good, because also like she was mentioning that, you know, my hematomas, like she was like, oh yeah, like that's pretty serious. So like I felt very validated. And yeah, she was just kind of like telling me more than my other doctor had, and it was like she was just more in it. And she was telling me, you know, how she kind of feels like sometimes like how patients become like family. Like, she cares so much about them. Like, if I have another pregnancy and I'm like, oh my god, I haven't felt the baby move, like, or, you know, I'm just having an anxious day, can I come in? Like, she's like, totally fine, like, come in, like, it's not that big of a deal, like, I'd rather know you're okay, like, you're never gonna bother me by calling me. And so it just, you know, it felt really nice and really good to have a new doctor and feel like she's going to be a big positive helping hand in the future. So that, you know, I had that bit of a breakdown, but then to have this a few days later, it felt very, I felt a little more at peace, and I felt a little more hope. It was just, it was like overwhelming in a good way. And Joey did not go with me, but I do hope that he likes her. I think he will. And yeah, so that was like huge, and that was like so exciting. I know those videos were both really long, but if you watched them, I appreciate it so much, and thank you for following along on me sharing my story and my journey of my stillbirth and what's to come after that.